Angry residents in Johannesburg are demanding answers after 60% of them were affected by power cuts. This after the city officials implemented load shedding rotation, leaving residents cold and in the dark.
Well, these power cuts have been blamed on a blown transformer at the Sebenza substation, which is situated close to the city's Eskom connection point. Johannesburg MMC for Environment and Infrastructure Services, Nico de Jager, offered some answers in a meeting with residents and city engineers. SABC News reporter Nozintombi Miya filed the story.
Let's get right into it. What really caused the power cuts? We know that one of your biggest substations, Sebenza, had a blown transformer, but I think people want to get an idea of what exactly happened.
Well, what happened was we commissioned or built a new substation at Sebenza to replace one dating back to 1945. That is part of that job belongs to Eskom, but we couldn't wait for Eskom to come on board. And they estimated would have been around 2022, 2023. We then said as a city, let's start this project. Let's get the substation up and running to have a more steady supply, and also because we need to capacitate city power for future supply to the Modderfontein development. And as a result, we started this project some years ago, and we now at the completion date. Just before, literally 5 hours before we could commission the new transformer, that transformer then went down, or the line went down, and we lost complete supply from both Eskom and Calvin substation. Power plant. We then got the new transformer up and running, and no sooner was that transformer up and running when the new transformer blew a gasket, and again we lost supply. We then commissioned a Calvin power plant. We got the power plant up and running to supply additional load to city power. But the old infrastructure then had a challenge talking to new infrastructure, and as a result, again, we lost supply.
Nico, sorry to interrupt you there. When you say that the infrastructure was not able to communicate with each other and the transformer blew, how did it affect residents?
Again, when that happened, we had an enormous part of the area without electricity. Not as bad as the original outage on Thursday, but it still left a great chunk of the northeastern suburbs, some 200,000 residents without any power. And we then had to introduce load rotation. Load rotation is no different from load shedding. The one is just city power, and the other one is Eskom. Since then, on Monday, we restored and the transformer that originally blew on Friday, and we're very happy to say that until now, we've got no issues, and we have a steady supply, both from Eskom as well as Calvin. And the second transformer will then also be commissioned on the 25th of this month. Towards the end of November, the entire Sebenza substation, the job will be complete, some 900 million rand that the city has invested, and that will give us a steady supply over the next 40 years at least. So we are very comfortable with what we've done, and we believe that in a roundabout way we were actually a victim of our own success, if I may say it like that. And I think the meeting tonight was very positive because it gave all our residents the assurance that City Power is working very hard on.
Speaking about the residents here who were at the town hall, many wouldn't have said that you were quite successful because a lot of people were quite inconvenienced by the power cuts. And one of the key issues had been a lack of communication between the residents and City Power.
Absolutely, communication is absolute key, and I couldn't agree with you more. Our communication from City Power poses a challenge, and that is why we are addressing it. And today and yesterday also we had meetings, very intense discussions to up our communications, up our game, and I think we are turning the ship as well. Communication is key, and we can never ever neglect that.
One of the other important things that you spoke about, and also in your response, you spoke about an investment that you made of 1 billion rand around 4 years ago, and you also spoke about a 17 million, 19 million rand backlog. Just explain those figures to us and how you are looking to improve and maintain this current aging infrastructure.
Yeah, in the entire city, we sit with a backlog of maintenance refurbishment of infrastructure to the amount of 190 billion rand, 170 billion rand rather. 19 billion rand of that is just on city power. So you can see that when we talk about infrastructure investment, the task ahead of us is massive. We have to try and eradicate that backlog over the next 10 years. 27% of all our infrastructure, all our transformers are obsolete. It's beyond its useful life. But we only have a limited funds available. So we need to start working in a very proactive way when we prioritize, and also prioritize really based on a needs analysis. That analysis has been done by City Power officials and the clever people in City Power, and I do believe that now we can move ahead. We've got 13 substations over the next 3 years that we are refurbishing, and we've already started with that process. The work in City Power is always continuing, and we're going to work very hard. And not only upping our game in terms of communication, but also in keeping the lights on.
So you said 190 billion rand backlog.
It's 170 billion rand backlog. See, it's late for both of us. It's 170 billion rand backlog and overall infrastructure. That's what we've inherited over the years. And it is not only from the last 10 or 12 years, it's an ongoing and a cumulative figure. So we need to address that backlog in order to secure electricity, water supply to all residents.
Nico, my final question, are we going to be expecting any more power cuts? It is cold, it has gotten colder, and I think a lot of families will up the usage of electricity. Are we going to see transformers bursting again and interrupting the power supply?
You know, that's a very difficult question. I can't say we will never have interruptions again, but I can tell you that we are in the process of securing the infrastructure. It doesn't help we only secure Sebenza, but further down the line, our own supply is not necessarily as stable. So that is where the upgrading of those substations come into play, and that is absolutely critical. We do have a problem in the city where people are not using electricity sparingly, and we always say, please switch off non-essential equipment. That is absolutely critical. We do have so many people without electricity. So when we have it, let's use it responsibly.